WADR. You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org. WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Here are the top stories. The Senegalese National Assembly adopts a bill to ratify the Convention of Transfer of Prisoners with Morocco. Côte d'Ivoire records over 9,000 cases of gender-based violence in 2024.
In 2024, 9,607 cases of gender-based violence were reported, including 920 cases of rape, 287 sexual assaults, 25 female genital mutilations.
Authorities in Mali suspend salaries of 100-plus teachers for prolonged absence from classrooms, and in Liberia, cemeteries in ruin on Memorial Day as citizens struggle to identify burial sites of deceased family members.
Look at my bag grave, I saw it was open. They said to take the steel off. I just feeling sad and disappointed because it carried me back.
What can we do to have a continuous security? So we want to call all of those who have their relatives here. We come and have a mass meeting.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners within and beyond the sub-region. Let's begin here in Senegal, where the National Assembly has adopted a bill to ratify the convention between Dakar and Rabat concerning assistance to detained persons and the transfer of sentenced persons. The ratification jointly presented by the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Law Committee now awaits President Bassirou Diomaye Faye's assent. This agreement, originally signed in Rabat on December 17, 2004, provides a legal framework for consular protection and streamlines the process of transferring prisoners between the two nations. At the floor of the chamber, several MPs, including Aissata Talsal of the ruling former ruling Benobok Yakar, reiterated that the law does not target former President Macky Sall, who lives in Morocco, contrary to speculations. Christopher Ticho reports.
The Senegalese Minister of Foreign Affairs highlighted the significance of the agreement in enhancing bilateral judicial cooperation and providing better protection for Senegalese citizens incarcerated in Morocco. While parliamentarians generally supported the measure, they voiced concerns regarding the existing conditions of detention and the significant delay in its ratification, given that the agreement was established over 2 decades ago. The convention set out procedures for transferring convicted persons and providing consular assistance to prisoners. It specifies the modalities for the execution of sentence and the conditions for the transfer, which may be requested by the prisoner, the state that sentenced him, or the state that administered him. As a general rule, the Senegalese state will bear the bulk of the cost unless the parties agree otherwise. Currently, around 299 Senegalese individuals are held in various prisons across Morocco, mainly for offenses related to irregular migration, drug trafficking, and other criminal activities. Morocco serves as a crucial transit point for many sub-Saharan migrants seeking to reach Europe, including Senegalese nationals who often find themselves in precarious situations.
Christopher Ticho reporting there. In Guinea, the collective of the families of Nzirikere has lodged a complaint against the transitional authorities. In all, nearly 100 families are accusing senior civil and military officials of being responsible for the stampede at the stadium that caused their relatives' lives. As a reminder, on December 1, 2024, in Nzirikere, a stampede at the town's stadium during a football match to celebrate General Mamadi Doumbouya resulted in 56 deaths according to the government and 120 deaths according to NGOs. Frederick Foromo Loa, one of the lawyers representing the families' victims, joins us in the later part of the news. In Ghana, reactions have been pouring in since the Minister of Finance presented the first budget statement and economic policy of President John Mahama's government. Reading the budget on Tuesday, Dr. Kassel Atto-Forson painted a gloomy picture of the economy they inherited while announcing the abolishment of several taxes instituted by the immediate past government, among which was a controversial e-levy. But the opposition has challenged this assertion, accusing the government of rather misleading the populace. From Accra, HRTSU reports.
The Minister of Finance was in Parliament in fulfillment of Article 179 of the 1992 Constitution and Section 21 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921. Among other things, he announced the abolishment of the e-levy, the COVID levy, and the betting tax, also known as a 10% withholding tax on winnings from lotteries.
We have programmed the following nuisance taxes for removal. We will abolish the 10% withholding tax on winning from lottery, otherwise known as the betting tax. We will abolish the electronic transfer levy, e-levy. We will abolish the 10% withholding tax on betting.
But in a hurried press conference right after the presentation of the budget, the immediate past Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, also a member of the opposition, said the address was misleading.
The minister has confirmed to the whole world today that the economy we handed over to the NDC government was a strong economy. We have been telling Ghanaians that the economy was not in crisis. President Mahama used the SONA to lament over an economy which was not in crisis, and yet he told Ghanaians the economy was in crisis. The Minister for Finance also tried to do same, but however, we all heard him alluding to the fact that this economy is a strong economy.
And in the words of the leader of the opposition in Parliament, Alexander Afenyomakin, the 2025 budget failed to inspire confidence.
It is clear that all the jobs they promised the youth of this country was merely an Assam promise. There is no inspiration from this budget. There is no hope in this budget.
The budget was on the theme, resetting the economy for the Ghana we want.
HRTSU filed that report away from Ghana. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is taking decisive action against insecurity in the region. At a high-level defense meeting in Abuja on Tuesday, the bloc's leadership approved the activation of its standby force, aiming to counter terrorism and other security threats across West Africa. However, ECOWAS maintains that its doors are still open to welcome back the AES member countries. WADR's Usman Umar has more.
In recent years, West Africa has faced escalating security challenges ranging from jihadist insurgencies in the Sahel to increasing armed violence in coastal states. In response to these threats, the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government has authorized the deployment of its standby force. Speaking at the 43rd Ordinary Meeting of the ECOWAS Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff in Abuja, Nigeria's Minister of Defense, Mohamed Badaru, emphasized the critical link between security and economic growth.
By leveraging our collective expertise, resources, and commitment, we can make a tangible impact on fostering peace, stability, and prosperity in the sub-region. In this regard, I am pleased to highlight the activation of the ECOWAS standby force to combat terrorism in the sub-region. The activation of this force underscores our collective determination to confront the scourge of terrorism with regards to insecurity and ensure the safety and security of our citizens.
Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, underscored the importance of unity among ECOWAS member states in confronting common threats.
The complexity of the security landscape demands that we leverage our collective expertise, intelligence assets, and coordinate our efforts towards borders if we must solve these challenges as the world has become a global village and the gap between us shrinking even more.
While ECOWAS advances its security framework, the bloc is also keeping diplomatic doors opened. The Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, reaffirms the region's commitment to dialogue, particularly with the three Sahelian nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, that recently withdrew to form the Alliance of Sahel States.
ECOWAS still has the doors open to welcome back our brothers brothers and sisters from the three countries that have recently withdrawn.
While the standby force now activated, ECOWAS is sending a strong message that it is ready to tackle insecurity while still pursuing diplomatic engagement. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we're live on Facebook and YouTube at WADR. In Benin, the year 2026 will be marked by simultaneous holding of presidential, legislative and municipal elections. Ahead of those elections, a delegation from the Opposition Consultation Framework has met with the National Autonomous Electoral Commission, SENA. The Tuesday meeting, chaired by the chairman of SENA, Saka Lafia, provided an opportunity to discuss the level of arrangements for organizing these upcoming elections, as well as concerns of the opposition. Imo Edet completes the story.
The Opposition Consultation Framework requested a meeting with the National Autonomous Electoral Commission, SENA, to address organizational challenges and discuss technical issues aimed at ensuring transparency in the upcoming polls. During discussions held Tuesday at the SENA headquarters, the Commission President Saka Lafia reaffirmed the institution's commitment to organizing credible and fair elections. He also outlined several mechanisms to ensure a smooth election process. Meanwhile, Antoine Guédou, Vice-Togbe president of the Grand Solidarité Republicaine GSR party and spokesperson for the Opposition Consultation Framework, outlined the key concerns of the opposition. These include the recruitment of electoral agents and different coordinators, as well as access to the list of candidates. Vice-Togbe emphasized the importance of transparency, particularly regarding the application of Article 93 of the Electoral Code, which mandates the display and transmission of final results to all competing parties. This meeting marked the first engagement between the legal opposition and the National Autonomous Electoral Commission, SENA. Both sides have agreed to continue discussions to ensure an inclusive electoral process in full compliance with legal provisions.
Imo Edet with that report filed in by WADR's Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sule. A new movement has emerged in Togo to combat corruption in the country. Known as the National Liberation Front, FLN, the movement seeks to lead the charge against corruption and arbitrariness within Togo. The front is made up of 13 members in its coordination alongside 18 groups from diverse sectors including civil society, politics and academia. With a focus on unity, the National Liberation Front promised to be a unified force for change in the country. Augustine Kole has the rest of the details.
This movement aims to be at the forefront of the fight against corruption and arbitrariness in Togo. The National Liberation Front, FLN, consists of 13 members within its coordination. It unites 18 groups from various sectors, including civil society, politics, and academia. Dr. Komlan, the coordinating president of the National Liberation Front, outlines the movement's objectives.
The first objective is to fight for the liberation of political prisoners so that they can safely return home without condition. The second objective is to ensure that all Togolese who are in asylum for political reasons can return to their homeland where we are living. Some of them have been there for 30 years, and when they come home, their parents are dead. They couldn't attend their parents' burials. We will make sure that they return to the home. General amnesty and then the transition. It is fundamental. Everything that is done today is fake. The truth is in the hands of the DMK. We need an inclusive transition to be able to take care of all the Togolese, discuss and see the decisions to be taken.
The uniqueness of this movement lies in its composition, which is primarily made up of young people, including doctors like those of the APLA in Togo.
This front is not like any other. It is a front composed of young people that you would not find in other fronts. If you make a synoptic analysis of other fronts, you will see that these fronts are always composed of elderly, uninspiring people who have nevertheless made up the pile that normally should have gone gone through the same thing.
With this new front, the opposition DMK intends to steer the Togolese political landscape back on track, encouraging active participation from the population.
A report by WADR's Lomé correspondent Sylvie Ouedraogo and voiced by Augustine Coley. Crossing over to the Sahel, particularly in Mali, Menaka, authorities have ordered the suspension of salaries for 151 teachers due to their prolonged absence from work. This decision comes amidst a deepening education crisis, with 53% of schools in the region remaining non-functional because of insecurity and violence. The suspension of salary, set to take effect on April 1, 2025, follows a warning issued to the teachers in February, urging them to return to their post by March 3. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and live on WADR.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The Senegalese National Assembly adopts a bill to ratify the Convention of Transfer of Prisoners with Morocco. Authorities in Mali suspend salaries of 100-plus teachers for prolonged absence from classes. Still ahead in the news, Côte d'Ivoire records over 9,000 cases of gender-based violence in 2024. Liberia's cemeteries in ruin on Memorial Day as citizens struggle to identify burial sites of deceased family members. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. Now, data from the Ivorian government indicates that the country recorded more than 9,600 cases of gender-based violence in 2024 alone. This figure was announced by Dr. Fofana Ebse Binata Namizata, Gender Technical Advisor in charge of Regional Cooperation at the Ivorian Ministry of Women, Family and Children. She disclosed on Tuesday during the weekly Forum for Exchange and Information at the Government Information and Communication Center in Abidjan. Held under the theme, Promotion of Women's Rights in Côte d'Ivoire, Dr. Fofana also spoke about progress in promoting women's rights in the country. Francis Boniface has more.
According to Dr. Fofana Ebse Binate Namizata, the 9,607 reported cases of gender-based violence in Côte d'Ivoire pose a significant obstacle to the empowerment of women. She emphasized that these acts of violence also hinder women's participation in the nation's development.
In 2024, 9,607 cases of gender-based violence were reported, including 920 cases of rape, 287 sexual assaults, 25 female genital mutilations, 4,394 denials of resources, and 1,798 psychological or emotional violence. There is a phenomenon that has become very recurrent, which is femicide.
However, the Gender Technical Advisor in charge of Regional Cooperation at the Ivorian Ministry of Women, Family and Children believes that progress has been made in advancing women's rights, particularly with the adoption of the Family Code in 2019.
First, within the family itself, we now have joint management of family assets. Since this law, a woman can be the head of the family. This is a recognition of the woman's responsibility. A woman can give her name to her child. She can also carry her name instead of her husband's. Today, a woman can decide to pursue the profession she wants without asking her husband's opinion, which was not the case before.
In 2023, health authorities in Côte d'Ivoire reported 8,782 cases of gender-based violence. In response, a national program has been established to combat this issue. The program is responsible for addressing all forms of violence, with efforts including awareness-raising campaigns and providing care to survivors of GBV.
Albin Ade's report in Abidjan, presented by Francis Boniface. And across the border in Liberia, citizens have gathered at various cemeteries across the country on the occasion of the National Decoration Day this Wednesday to honor the death of their loved ones. Observed on the second Wednesday of March annually, this national holiday is a time for reflection, remembrance, and gratitude for the contributions made by those who have passed away. However, this observance has been marred by a troubling trend that has captured the attention and concern of many. The once consecrated grounds for the deceased have fallen prey to acts of desecration, leaving families in deep frustration and sorrow. WADR's Abraham Parker in Monrovia tells us more.
Reports from around the country indicate that grave sites, including the historic Palm Grove Cemetery in central Monrovia, the found the resting place of former presidents and notable figures, have now become havens for disadvantaged youth, with men in areas transforming into hubs for drug activity. The Shukokin Fine Cemetery in Buchanan has faced a similar fate, while the Johnsonville Cemetery outside Monrovia sharply exemplifies this distressing trend, with approximately 400 graves vandalized. In many instances, steel used in the construction of tombs have been removed, exposing caskets and human remains, and leaving families to grapple with the emotional toll of such devastation. One individual who ventured to visit the grave of a loved one encountered a heartbreaking surprise upon discovering the destruction of the site she had dear.
Look at my pack grave, I saw it was open. They said to take the steel off. I just feeling sad and disappointed because it carried me back.
And meanwhile, Daniel Fala, the sanitation manager for the township of Johnsonville gravesite, describes the destruction as a setback for the community.
What can we do to have a continuous security? The commissioner office is unable to do that. So we want to call all of those who have their relatives here. We come and have a mass meeting.
The emotional weight of these events resonates deeply as families mourn not only the loss of their loved ones, but also the desecration of their final resting places.
We're not going to take out of the cemetery for 2024 up to today, 2025, that how they started busting the grave there over, and then they started taking the room there from there.
As Liberia reflects on the lives of those who have passed, it is crucial to address the challenges faced by the living, fostering a community that respects and cares for both the deceased and those who mourn them. For Newslink on WADR, I'm Abraham Parker in Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For today's price review, let's join WADR's Sankule Janko in Banjul.
Hello there and welcome to this edition of the Press Review. We begin with the Standard newspaper. Today, murder at Bruford Heights. Police probe killing and robbing of ex-banker. That's the story on the Standard newspaper. A retired banker was allegedly killed and two suspects, two Sierra Leoneans are on the run. A watchman and the maid of the retired banker. Gambia ought to expedite anti-corruption commission. Mayor Law says a decision to deny diaspora voting painful. Rohi Malik Law is the mayor of Banjul City Council. Court rules Industrial Tribunal can hear UTG case. Gambia's Jalot takes over as OMVG High Commissioner. And this other one reads, let's take a look at the Fourier newspaper. And the lead story under Fourier newspaper reads, Tribunal overrules UTG's objections in dismissed lecturer's case. That's the lead story under Fourier newspaper. This other one reads, cement shortage in Gambia linked to port delays. As climate risks grow, Gambia struggles to adapt. That's another story under Fourier newspaper. This other one reads, DPP continues cross-examine Usainu Bojang in police shooting case. Parliament considers clause for immediate discharge of accused persons. Constitutional Matters Committee recommends 10 years of imprisonment for fraud dealings. And let's take a look at the final newspaper for today, and that is the Point newspaper. And the lead story on the Point newspaper reads, Jame victims reacts to Bora's death. Manjang's arrest warrant. Brigadier General Bora Koli died on Sunday while awaiting for trials of allegations of human rights abuses. Maid and watchman at large as police probe death of retired banker. Court calls for legal counsel for alleged armed robbers. EFSCHR welcomes coroner's inquest into death of jungler Bora Koli. And this other one reads, Senegal, Gambia, National Development elects new executive. My friend, these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studio.
WADR's Sankule Janko there with the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Frederick Furomo Lua, one of the lawyers representing the families of the victims of the tragedy in Nzerikere, Guinea. Nearly 100 families lodged a complaint against the transitional authorities on Monday. This follows the stampede at a stadium in December 2024 during a football match that left 56 people dead, according to the government, and more than 140 others, according to NGOs. While judicial investigations are at a standstill, the families of the victims have brought the case before the Nzerikere Court of First Instance. Frederick Lua tells us more.
Yes, that's because of the seriousness of the event that took place in Nzerikere on December 1, 2024. You will recall that it was a tragedy when the authorities in their propaganda campaign decided to organize a football tournament with the trophy of the president of the transition, General Mamadou Doumbouya. So, without the appropriate measures being taken, the stadium was still under construction. That day, the stadium was filled to capacity and the town was overly populated. The servants were in the process of transporting all their children and everyone to the stadium without any appropriate safety measures being taken. So, the NGOs initially published an interim report, which was followed by a final report, and it was only after the publication of these reports that the victims were organized into an association. In addition, there are more than 80 victim families, and it is on behalf of these 80 families that a complaint has been launched with the tribunal. This complaint covers a series of offenses, including murder, assassination, failure to assist people in danger, obstruction of justice, enforced disappearance, and concealment of bodies. So, it's a series of offenses that are targeted in the complaints brought against the organizers of the event, but also against the military authorities and the authorities at the highest level of learning.
And what are your expectations following your complaint?
In terms of expectations, we want justice to be done and for responsibilities to be clarified so that we know what happened and that sanctions are applied, because it is incomprehensible that such an event could take place without the authorities at the highest level even agreeing to make a speech or a press release on the matter. It's a total silence. The authorities don't want to talk about it. There haven't even been any support measures for the victims. You remember that some families have lost children, others 3 children, and most of the people who died that day at the stadium were children. Because of everything I have just said, we have decided to complain on behalf of these victims, and we hope that there will be a speedy justice and that the sector will be held accountable in this case.
Has there been any reaction or measures taken by the government following your complaint?
Yes, when the complaint was lodged, a series of decrees followed. The mayor of the town was relieved of his duties. The governor was transferred as the prefect. So, these were the measures taken by the authorities following the lodging of our complaints.
Frederick Furomo Lua is one of the lawyers representing the victims of families of the Nzerikere Stadium stampede in Guinea. In the sporting world, CAF and Africa Club Association chairman have signed an MOU to strengthen African club football. The president of the Confederation of the African Football, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and the African Club Association chairman Hesse have signed a historic memorandum of understanding in Cairo to strengthen the partnership between the two football bodies to promote growth and development of the game. During the signing ceremony, the ACA commended the CAF president for increasing financial support for club football. This included the $50,000 solidarity fee given to all clubs that participated in the preliminary stages of the CAF Inter-Club competition, making it the first time clubs were given financial assistance to participate in the CAF Inter-Clubs competition. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sheikh Kinjai for technical assistance. Do fuller discussions on X, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a replay of our program, 50/50. And at the top of the hour is the second edition of Comprehensive News Package in French and Fushevu with Alpha Abubakar. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7